Then let's roll into chapter 2. As we're getting into what we know the Christmas story, things are going to instantly get pretty ugly. Now when Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, there came wise men from the east to Jerusalem. Now this is a fulfillment of prophecy as the Messiah was to be born of the line of David and to be born in Bethlehem. Here we don't see anything concerning the child's birth. We don't see anywhere here concerning the struggle to find a room in the inn. Matthew doesn't give us that. That's in the other Gospels. But we do see King Herod, and I want to speak for a moment of King Herod. King Herod is the king over the Jewish people at this time and over Jerusalem. Rome is over him. There was a time back in former books where God's people were divided. We've got Israel, we've got Judah. God has never meant for his people to be divided. Let me just say that first and foremost. King Herod is a king. We see all kind of trouble once God's people demanded a king. They had the view of the world. They wanted a king as the world and other lands have kings. And ultimately, God let them have their king. And we see historically that the king did not govern Israel more often. The king did not govern Israel well more times than he did govern well. I hope that came out right. Herod, we're going to see, is one of the kings who is absolutely eat up with sin. Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king. Behold, there came wise men from the east, also known as the Magi. We know them as the wise men, saying, where is he that is born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east and are come to worship him. We're not given the information if these people are Jewish or not. We do know that they're wise. We do know that they're magi. That can be translated as magicians. We do know that they're astronomers, that they do follow the stars. And this star appeared according to prophecy. As we look at our nativity that are sold, there seems to be always one of the wise men who is black. And there has been questions of, did they come from Africa? Did they come from China? Did they come from the region of Japan? We only know that they are from the east. When Herod the king had heard these things, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. So here we have the Jewish king. These wise men show up, and the Jewish king, who, if he was a devout Jew, would be earnestly seeking the coming of Messiah, who would ultimately hand over his throne to the anointed one who was coming to save his people. But here we see that Herod the king had heard these things, and the scripture tells us here in the gospel according to Matthew that Herod was troubled. This should be a red flag to us concerning who Herod is. And when he had gathered all the chief priests and scribes of the people together, he demanded of them where Christ should be born. If he was any level of a Jewish king, Herod should know where the Messiah was going to be coming from. This would be the focus of the people. And they said unto him, in Bethlehem of Judea, for thus it is written by the prophet, and thou, Bethlehem, in the land of Judea, art not the least among the princes of Judah, for out of thee shall come a governor that shall rule my people Israel. Then Herod, when he had privately called the wise men, these are those that came from the east, the Magi, he inquired of them diligently what time the star appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem and said, Go and search diligently for the young child, and when ye have found him, bring me word again, so I may come and worship him also. So we have a Jewish king governing Jewish people who are waiting the Messiah. We know where the Messiah is to come from, and we know what line he's to come from, but the king is telling strangers who've come to the land to go find him. This doesn't add up. The king knows nothing of his people. This also gives us a timeline here for when the wise men actually visited. All of our nativity scenes, we see the wise men bringing gifts to the manger of Jesus with the animals around. But this here is about to show us that that timeline is not actually correct. When they had heard verse 9, when they had heard the king, they departed, and lo, the star which they saw in the east went before them till it came and stood over where the young child was. We're not talking baby or infant, we're talking a young child. And when they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceeding great joy. And when they were coming to the house, they saw the young child with Mary. Notice the wise men are showing up, according to Matthew, at the house. They're not at a manger. They're not at the inn. They're showing up at Mary and Joseph's house. They saw the young child with Mary, his mother, and fell down and worshiped him. And when they had opened their treasures, they presented unto him gifts, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. So these men came from the far east, led by the star. They brought gifts, and the gifts tell us a tremendous volume about who this baby is. A gift of gold in this day and time would be the king. They are designating by their gift, gold is for a gift for a king. Frankincense. Frankincense is what is burned in the temple, in the holy place, and in the most holy place, specifically for the priest, for the offerings. So by them giving him gold, they're designating that he's going to be a king. And by them giving him frankincense, they're designating that he's the high priest. And lastly, myrrh. Myrrh is an anointing spice used in the Jewish embalming process. By them giving him myrrh, they are designating, even at his young age here, that he is actually going to die. And when we read further on in the other Gospels, we're going to see Nicodemus, and we're even going to get the size and the weight of the bag that they bring to anoint his body once they get him off of the cross. And that designation there is myrrh as well. Verse 12, and being warned of God in a dream that they should not return to Herod, they departed into their own country another way. This is where things begin to get ugly concerning Herod. These men were designated as wise men. God warned them in a dream to not tell, I'm going to use the term, the evil King Herod, because up until this point, he doesn't know what's going on with his own people. He doesn't know where the Messiah is to be born. He is Jewish. Everything is wrong. We're not giving the designation that the wise men were Jewish. We're not given the designation that they were not Jewish. But God warned them in a dream to stay away from Herod and go on home. And when they were departed, verse 13, and when they were departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, arise and take the young child and his mother and flee into Egypt, and be thou there until I bring thee word, for Herod will seek the young child and destroy him. So now God appears in a dream to the wise men. They get out of town, and now God appears to Joseph and says, get up, take your young child and Mary and go to Egypt where it's safe. Egypt is a land that is not governed by Herod at this time. Verse 14, when he arose and took the young child and his mother by night, and they departed into Egypt, and was there until the death of Herod, that it might be fulfilled, which is spoken of the Lord of the prophets, saying, out of Egypt I have called my son. Excuse me. Once again, Matthew giving us fulfillment of prophecy all throughout his gospel. Then Herod, verse 16, when he saw that he was mocked by the wise men, was exceeding wroth. Now, I read the passage above, and if you're following along, I hope you did too, that I don't see where Herod was mocked by the wise men. I see the wise men as leaving. They simply didn't follow through with coming back to tell him their findings, as they were led by the Lord not to. Herod viewed it as them mocking him, and wrath is the Old English term for exceedingly angry. Now, and he sent forth and slew all the children that were in Bethlehem and in all the coast thereof, from 2 years old and under, according to the time which he had diligently inquired of the wise men. Now, this gives us a timeline for the wise men's journey. This gives us a timeline for the age of Jesus at this point, because Herod has just instituted an order to kill every young child, and here it says, and slew all the children, male and female, that were 2 years old or less. So young child here, at the time the wise men came, based on the timeline of what we just read, Jesus would have been in the area of 2 years old. So the wise men did not come at the time of infancy. They came at, we're here, young child, young child, young child, young child. Herod then is going to kill off his own people. Herod is a king. He's over the Jewish people. He's now to the place that he's mad at the wise men, and he's going to kill off any Jewish child 2 years old or younger of his own people. I just can't help at this point but to think about Herod as he stands before the Lord, and the Lord would say, I gave you the position of being a king over my people. I sent my son to be the Messiah. I kept him out of your wrath. You killed off more of my chosen people. And now there's a gap in the genealogy. I mean, this killing off of all of these children 2 years and younger, how much loyalty do you think that the Jewish people now have for their king? Once their king has all of the army come through, break into their home, run a sword through their child, at this point now, there has to be a major, major tension in the land. Verse 17, then was fulfilled that which was spoken by Jeremy. Some state this as Jeremiah, the prophet, saying, in Ramah was there a voice heard, lamentation and weeping and great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children, and would not be comforted because they are not, or they are no more. So we see Matthew showing us that this prophecy was fulfilled of Jeremiah, even for the mass mourning, weeping for the death of all these children. Now we jump the timeline from verse 18 to 19. But when Herod was dead, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt. So Joseph and Mary are still in Egypt, and now Herod has died. We don't know how he died. We don't know why he died. We're estimating that he became old and died. We don't give a timeline. We're not given a timeline of how long Joseph and Mary were in Egypt, but verse 20 once again calls him a young child. saying, Arise and take the young child and his mother, and go into the land of Israel, for they are dead which sought the young child's life. That would be all of those people associated with Herod that were out to kill baby Jesus. Joseph in 21, and he arose and took the young child and his mother and came into the land of Israel. But when he heard that Archelaus did reign in Judea in the room of his father Herod, he was afraid to go thither. Notwithstanding, being warned of God in a dream, he turned aside into the parts of Galilee. And he came and dwelt in the city called Nazareth, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by the prophets, he shall be called a Nazarene. So while they're coming back, Joseph has some reservations about coming back to where they left, because the son of Herod is on the throne, and he feels that Herod's son, Archelaus, may try to follow through with what his father did not finish, and that is to kill the young child. And God, once again, out of mercy, Joseph gets in a dream to turn and go to the land of Galilee, thus fulfilling another prophecy that Jesus will be called a Nazarene. And that is the end of chapter 2.